Welcome back to Nothing But Fun Adventures, where we adventure into the kitchen to take the herring we caught last week, turn it into some tasty roll mops, and herring tidbits and wine sauce. Well, first thing we do is wash our jars up in the sink, get them nice and clean. Then get your big pot of boiling water, bring it to a rolling boil, get the jars in there. Give them about 5 minutes of boiling water and sterilize them, and pull them out and set them off to dry on a drying towel. For this recipe of pickled herring, I'm going to be using about a 5-gallon bucket full, maybe about 4 inches down from the top, full of herring. And then I will scale them and fillet them and trim the bellies and the fins off, and then put them in a 5-gallon bucket. It'll be about half full at this point. You're going to want to grab some white vinegar and pour vinegar into the bucket until all of the fillets are submerged, just covering them with vinegar. Then go ahead and grab about 2 to 3 cups of coarse salt and pour the salt into the bucket. Twice a day, you're going to want to rotate the fish, dump them from one bucket to another, back and forth, and then put them back in the fridge. You're going to want to do this for 8 days straight. On the 8th day, you can take them out and rinse them all off really good, and then put them in the fridge. Before you leave the fridge, grab a jar of pickles, bring them out, and start cutting them up into little portions that will roll up nicely in the fillets. You're also going to need some toothpicks so that once you wrap the fillets around the pickle, you can secure them there with the toothpick. I found it easier to roll up the pickle starting with the head end of the fish and rolling it down until you're just left with the tail. Then just grab the toothpick and spear it right through the whole roll mop, and it stays together pretty good. Try to estimate how many fish you need to do one jar and leave the rest in the fridge. It's important to keep the product as cool as you can for as long as you can. I was a little surprised how long it took. This is my first time doing it, and I didn't expect to take 4.5 hours to do 9 jars. But I'm sure in the end it'll be well worth it. The brine is Shotgun Red's recipe. 8 cups sugar, 7 cups white vinegar, 6 tablespoons of pickling spice, and a cup of white Zinfandel. You bring it all to a boil. As soon as it's boiling, turn it down and simmer it for 5 minutes, and then put it in the fridge so it's ice cool for the next day. I required 2 batches to do my 9.5 jars. Make sure you let your herring sit in the salt and vinegar for the full 8 days. On the 7th day, you should make the brine and give it plenty of time to cool down for jarring on the 8th day. Onions are an important part of the recipe. Head to the grocery store and find some sweet onions. Chop them up real small, or whatever size you like. Make sure to layer them into the jars. I prefer the small pieces because it packs into the jar nicer. Here I'm just getting the hang of rolling up the roll mops and portioning the pickles to the right size that I want. Some people aren't a fan of pickles, so we've got another option, and that's just herring tidbits in wine sauce. Be very similar to the roll mops, but just cut the fillets into bite-sized pieces. Start putting them in the jar and layer them in there with the onions, just like the roll mops. Doing up another jar of tidbits. After I add the brine, the onions and the fish start to float. They say after 2 to 5 days, when the fish and the onions start to sink, that's when the product's ready to eat. Try to keep the product in the fridge as much as possible. The colder the product, the higher the quality. I'm sorting the fish here, putting the longer, thicker ones aside for roll mops and the smaller, wrecked ones for tidbits. One of the big rookie mistakes I made was not scaling the fish properly. Make sure you get the tool and do it right off the bat before you start filleting, or you'll end up like me, having to rinse over and over and over again, trying to fight the scales the whole way through the process. You'll see here if you look closely after I get the fish out of the sink, when I pull the plug, there's quite a few scales going down the drain. Look at all those scales. Just starting to get a hang of doing the roll mops, not being so picky, and just getting them in the jar and trying to keep the dead airspace to a minimum so I'm not wasting my brine. Out of all the videos I've seen on YouTube, none of them show you how to seal the jars. Most people are just putting them into a large pickle jar and then telling you to consume them within 6 weeks. I figure they'll last longer if I can get a seal onto these jars, so I'll show you how I went about doing that. Take a few chilled jars out of the fridge and put them in a pot in the sink. Add warm water to acclimate the glass so it doesn't crack when you put it into the hot water. Once your jars are acclimated in the sink for 30 seconds, move them over into the hot water bath. You want this water to be about as hot as you can stand for doing dishes, but not boiling. Just enough to pressurize the jars and push out some of the air. It should take 5 minutes. To avoid cracking the glass a second time, take the jars out and put them into the warm water in the sink. Start adding cold water until they're chilled. We have to remove the heat as quickly as possible to avoid cooking the fish. Move the jars to the sink and start filling it with cold water only. Roll the jars around a little bit in the water as it's filling up. The lids should seal almost instantly, meaning you can crank down the ring a little bit. This is the white Zinfandel that I used for this particular recipe. I'm going to keep it on hand, and then after I open my jars and start to eat them, I'll probably just pour a little bit in and sweeten it up a bit. Move your jars to the fridge, and when the onions and fish sink, it's time to start snacking. With a sealed lid and good refrigeration, we should be able to extend the shelf life. Thanks for watching the video. Enjoy the fish. I had fun making it, and we'll see you next time.